Here's an update that we're all interested in. What's going on in the unconstitutional ban of the Second Amendment in New Mexico. Plus, I'll do an update on a new lawsuit as well as what happened today with the first court hearing against Michelle Lujan Grisham's unconstitutional suspension of the Constitution. First, I want to thank the sponsor of the video, and that's Blackout Coffee. Right now, I just poured a hot steaming cup of our 1776 dark roast. It is so smooth. It is not bitter. If you love dark roast, especially if you drink it black, this is the jam. We have medium and light roast as well. If you don't like coffee, we do loose leaf teas and hot chocolates. And I appreciate your support. blackoutcoffee.com/GNG, and I'll save you 10% with code GNG10. Links are down below. Thanks to Blackout Coffee. Try not to burn myself here. As you know, my name is Jared. This is Guns and Gadgets, and on this channel I bring you Second Amendment news from litigation to legislation and everything in between. And we're going to talk about New Mexico. First, subscribe to the channel down below if you think the Second Amendment cannot be suspended because of fear of a health emergency that was totally made up. Smash the like and subscribe down below. All right. So today a sixth lawsuit was filed against the New Mexico tyrant Karen Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. And it was filed in court, you can see it here on the screen, by Zachary Fort, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, and New Mexico Shooting Sports Association, Inc. Now that was filed late last night, and Executive Vice President Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation said, despite her claims to the contrary, Governor Grisham does not have the authority to suspend the Second Amendment for an alleged public health emergency or any other reason. Neither do any of the other defendants, nor can they legally enforce such a suspension. Adam Kraut at SAF said, evidently, Governor Lujan Grisham believes she can disregard the Constitution to further her own political views. We're taking action to stop this unconstitutional exercise of power in its tracks, because it is a flagrant violation of the right of an individual citizen to carry firearms in public for personal defense. Our motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction will prevent the state from further causing injury to the plaintiff and other citizens under this unlawful order. Now, the first court hearing for any of the complaints, which was the Gun Owners of America lawsuit, was supposed to be heard today. Today is September 12th. That's my wedding anniversary, so that is ingrained in my dome. But that has been postponed, not my wedding or my anniversary, but GOA's lawsuit. It has been postponed indefinitely by U.S. District Court Judge David Urias, who is a very recent Joe Biden appointee. Now, I just talked to Rob Olson at Gun Owners of America, who is the attorney who is kicking booty all over the country for GOA. And I said, hey, Rob, is this bad that it's been pushed back indefinitely? And he said, nope, not necessarily. And he thinks that maybe this judge might want to bring all of these suits in and do it all at once. We'll see what happens, because judges do what judges do. Also, there was a very large open carry protest in response to the governor's edict. And according to the New Mexico State Police, they're going to be breaking their oath to support and defend the United States Constitution and take action on this unconstitutional command. Remember, the chief of police in Albuquerque and the sheriff in the county said they're not doing it, they're not enforcing it, it's unconstitutional. But check out this here. It says, even without that physical presence, the governor's office intends to act. The order is being enforced and citations will be forthcoming from the state police, said Caroline Sweeney, a spokesman for Lujan Grisham's office. To ensure officer safety, we will not be providing additional details at this time. Multiple people were live streaming the event in Old Town, which turned into an open mic lasting several hours for anyone in attendance, mostly armed with at least one weapon, to share feelings, concerns, and possible threats in reaction to the order. Now, Governor Hitler's order was based on violent crime and a perceived made-up health emergency, but she has her Gestapo, the state police, focusing on Americans peacefully exercising their constitutional right to keep and bear arms, not rounding up violent criminals, which would stop her emergency problem with violent crime. Well, Check this out. A Democrat state senator in New Mexico publicly called out Grisham's order as unconstitutional. His name is Ted Lieu, and he said, "I support gun safety laws. However, this order from the governor of New Mexico violates the U.S. Constitution. No state in the Union can suspend the federal Constitution. There is no such thing as a state public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution." And just when you think it can't get any worse, this idiot, tyrannical coward said this: "Hey Ted, conceal and open carry are state laws that I have jurisdiction over. If you're really interested in helping curb gun violence, I'd welcome you to join our next police academy class." So she's saying, hey, I am the governor and I have power over open and concealed carry in New Mexico. No, you don't. 14th Amendment, Second Amendment, U.S. Constitution, you idiot. So she says he should, if he really cares about safety, then join the police department. Well, it doesn't stop there. 6 House Democrats from New Mexico have followed suit, telling the governor that she is out of bounds. Here's the letter they sent. "Dear Governor Lujan Grisham, we fully recognize that the city of Albuquerque continues to experience a violent crime crisis, as evidenced most recently by the high-profile murders of 2 innocent children. However, we stand with the leaders of local law enforcement agencies who have expressed grave concerns about the constitutionality, enforceability, and efficacy of Friday's public health orders 2023-130 and -132, banning the carry of firearms in public within Bernalillo County and on all state property across New Mexico." To recap, from Albuquerque Police Chief Harold Medina, "Our officers at APD will continue to focus on the enforcement of criminal laws and arresting the criminals who are driving violent crime in the city." From Albuquerque Police Officers Association President Sean Willoughby, quote, "There is no doubt that we are dealing with an out-of-control crime crisis in the city of Albuquerque, but this order does nothing to curb or address crime." From Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen, quote, "I have reservations regarding this order. While I understand and appreciate the urgency, the temporary ban challenges the foundation of our Constitution, which I swore an oath to uphold. I am wary of placing my deputies in positions that could lead to civil liability conflicts, as well as the potential risk posed by prohibiting law-abiding citizens from their constitutional right to self-defense." From Bernalillo County's District Attorney Sam Bregman, quote, "As an officer of the court, I cannot and will not enforce something that is clearly unconstitutional. This office will continue to focus on criminals of any age that use guns in the commission of a crime. We concur with law enforcement leaders that these executive orders violate law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights and would require law enforcement officers to infringe upon these rights, which would expose officers, police agencies, and communities to civil litigation. We agree that the governor does not have the authority to disregard both the New Mexico Constitution and the United States Constitution and to create law without action or input from the New Mexico Legislature. We look forward to supporting policy that helps provide real solutions to these problems." And you can see the 6 names there. And while I was editing this, it gets even better. I got this from my buddy John Crump, and this is from the Attorney General of the state of New Mexico. Listen to this letter he just put out. "Dear Governor Lujan Grisham, I am writing to inform you that my office will not defend your administration in the above referenced cases challenging the public health emergency order imposing temporary firearm restrictions, drug monitoring, and other public safety measures, the emergency order issued by the Secretary of Health on September 8, 2023. Though I recognize my statutory obligation as New Mexico's chief legal officer to defend state officials when they are sued in their official capacity, my duty to uphold and defend the constitutional rights of every citizen takes precedence. Simply put, I do not believe that the emergency order will have any meaningful impact on public safety, but more importantly, I do not believe it passes constitutional muster. As a career prosecutor, I have grieved with too many victims of gun violence in New Mexico not to share your anger and frustration at the unacceptable toll that gun violence has exacted, especially among the youngest members of our community. The tragic deaths of the 5-year-old in a recent drive-by shooting and the 11-year-old in a road rage incident should serve as a wake-up call to everyone. However, I encourage you to engage in more thoughtful and deliberative process with members of the New Mexico Legislature rather than taking unilateral action that infringes on the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens while having little, if any, discernible impact on the underlying dynamics driving gun violence in our community. The emergency order prohibits the possession of a firearm for anyone other than law enforcement and security officers except on private property owned by the person or with express consent of the owner on the premises of a firearms dealer or gunsmith for lawful transfer or repair at a licensed firing range or sport shooting venue, or while traveling to those locations with a firearm kept in a locked container or locked with a firearm safety device. In short, the order prevents individuals from carrying firearms in public for the purpose of self-defense. The attempted reach of this order, despite currently being limited to Bernalillo County, is highly problematic because it purports to alter lawful firearm possession in ways that are inconsistent with the federal and state constitutions. I agree with the need to start a debate about the devastating impact that gun violence is having on our citizens, especially our children. But the issuance of an executive order in violation of core constitutional principles is not the appropriate method for bringing about such a debate, and its flawed legal foundation is likely to obscure rather than highlight meaningful solutions. First, the order's reliance on the Public Health Emergency Response Act distorts the law's meaning beyond its intended purpose of protecting the public from the imminent threat of exposure to an extremely dangerous condition or a highly infectious or toxic agent, including a threatening communicable disease. Second, simply rebranding gun violence as a public health emergency will not satisfy the heightened judicial standard for justifying the blanket prohibition against any citizen, regardless of criminal conduct or intent, from carrying a firearm for personal protection. While no one doubts the devastating impact that gun violence has had on our community over the last several years, it is not clear that the problem is properly defined as a public health emergency, as that term is used within the PHERA. Moreover, even if the problem is properly categorized as a public health emergency, the data do not support the conclusion that gun violence in our community is attainable to otherwise law-abiding citizens exercising their constitutional right to carry firearms for protection outside of the home. As the former Bernalillo County District Attorney, I agree with your assessment that reasonable gun owners are certainly not our problem and never have been our problem. Given that only responsible gun owners are likely to abide, much less recognize your ban, it is unclear how this action will lead to a measurable decline in gun violence in our community. Moreover, considering the extraordinary resistance that many citizens had to certain public health restrictions during a recent COVID pandemic, I believe it is unwise to stretch the definition of a public health emergency to encompass something that is fundamentally a public safety issue. However, even if the courts agree with that classification and accept the premise that the ban on any person carrying weapons outside of the home is deemed to be sufficiently tailored to address that concern, it is a near certainty that the emergency order will still be found to violate both the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 2, Section 6 of the New Mexico Constitution. The Second Amendment secures the right of the people to keep and bear arms, and the United States Supreme Court has clarified that individual self-defense is the central component of the Second Amendment right. The court, relying on the textual issue of the word bear, has further held that this right naturally encompasses public carry. Moreover, the Second Amendment right is fully applicable to the states. Although the Second Amendment right is not unlimited, it is among those fundamental rights necessary to our system of ordered liberty. Laws may appropriately regulate the right, but may not infringe upon the right of an ordinary law-abiding citizen to carry handguns publicly for their self-defense. The New Mexico Constitution likewise secures the right to keep and bear arms. New Mexico's provision specifically applies to security and defense as well as to lawful hunting, recreational use, and other lawful purposes. The Bruin Court emphasized that the importance of a governmental objective is irrelevant to the constitutionality of a state's regulation of firearms. If the regulation interferes with an individual's right to amend self-defense, it is presumptively unconstitutional and can only be upheld if the government is able to affirmatively prove that its firearm regulation is part of the historical tradition that delimits the outer bounds of the right to keep and bear arms. As indicated above, The novel reclassification of gun violence as a public health emergency appears to have been adopted as a pretext to apply the extraordinary but narrowly prescribed powers of the PHERA to prohibit all citizens, regardless of their criminal intent or conduct, to possess firearms in public. Unfortunately, it is the very novelty of this approach that places it outside the historical tradition of gun regulation in this country and thus unlikely to survive judicial scrutiny. For these reasons, my office cannot undertake a defense in the emergency order, and though we will provide a limited commission for your administration to defend those actions in the above referenced cases, I strongly encourage you to consider whether the time and energy dedicated to its defense might be better utilized in the development of a comprehensive legislative response to the problem of gun violence for the New Mexico Legislature to consider during the upcoming session. New Mexicans recognize there is no single solution to our public safety challenges. Instead, there is a common understanding that we must address multiple issues simultaneously and comprehensively to make meaningful impact. We need, among other things, more and better trained police officers, stricter gun laws and tougher guidelines of pretrial detention, robust mental health and drug treatment, rehabilitation programs to reduce recidivism, real-time data on gun crimes and gun trafficking, and a protective services framework that keeps today's child victims from maturing into the next generation's repeat offenders. Our collective efforts should thus be engaged in a robust dialogue around each of these issues, building consensus that challenges the status quo and harnessing our once-in-a-generation budget surplus to bring about transformative change. This can only occur through the legislative process and will only occur through your committed and energetic leadership. While I understand the frustrations that may have led you to undertake a unilateral approach to addressing the heart-wrenching challenge of gun violence in our community, I urge you to reconsider this course of action and redouble your efforts to bring about lasting change through the democratic process. I can and will commit the resources of the Attorney General's office to such an endeavor and stand ready to assist you in building a safer community without sacrificing the constitutional rights which we have sworn an oath to preserve, protect, and defend. And this is Raul Torres, the Attorney General of the state of New Mexico. So here we go. Now is the time for the courts to step in and put a stop to this unconstitutional edict immediately. Immediately. We could have had it stopped today with the GOA hearing that was scheduled for today, but a Joe Biden appointed judge decided we were going to kick the can on that, which is, if we could only hold legislators and judges personally responsible for their actions on the job, that things would change over freaking night, guys and gals, overnight. Or if they would also be held accountable for all the laws they pass once they come out of office, because they make themselves immune to all of it as well. So that's what's going on in New Mexico. You are caught up right now as more unfolds, and it will, because we have never been in a scenario like this in this country, right? We never had the Constitution suspended by anybody. I know people are going to say, what about New Orleans police? That was equally, well, just under this. That was bad. It was terrible. This is worse. So let me know what you guys and gals think below. Like I said, more will be upcoming soon. This is a rapidly evolving situation. You want to stay in the know, subscribe to the channel down below. Turn on the bell notifications so you're notified when I put up new videos or go live. And I appreciate your support. Thank you so much for your love of Blackout Coffee. I am going to turn this off and enjoy this cup of 1776 because I apparently need a little more energy in my life. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Have a fantastic day. Take care.